Hello, this is Dr. Flight, and this segment is focused on elements of the shakeout period, which happens right after the growth period, but leads directly into the maturity stage. We're going to talk a little bit about the shakeout period, but then also spend a good amount of time thinking about service and how organizations can differentiate themselves through service activities. And this is really, really important, not so much for the shakeout period, but for the maturity period. When we get into maturity, firms have to be able to show how they're different from each other. And by that stage, the product itself doesn't necessarily stand alone or unique. But what makes a product unique is how well the company provides service and how they treat the customer. So the maturity stage really takes a lot of emphasis in terms of product augmentations and very importantly, how well customers are served. So that's why that discussion is in there, and it directly, takes place often after the shakeout period happens as well. So again, the segment here on the shakeout period and differentiation through services. We're going to spend some time talking about the maturity stage and some of the characteristics of the maturity stage. So it's important to know that we're emerging from a shakeout period where competitors are experiencing a lot of price pressure and then also pressure just to compete for market share. So the market's still growing through the shakeout stage, but we're moving quickly into a period of time where the market will settle down and a lot of the uncertainty of the market will dissipate. So lots of market activity is going on and lots of competitive pressure is happening during the shakeout period. And again, maturity is going to come, soon after this. And companies know this, so they're going to choose to either make a long-term commitment or they're going to or they're going to want to get out is basically the deal with that. So as the shakeout stage finishes up, there's going to be an appearance of overcapacity because there'll be a lot of companies that have come into this stage or come into the growth stage, and now there's a lot of producers, and the capacity that's provided, the supply, in other words, the supply of the product is going to grow, but it's going to go away just as quickly because companies that entered in the growth stage are going to be leaving here soon. It's difficult at this point to be different and to be distinguishing during the shakeout phase, but that's something that's going to be a key point during the maturity stage to be able to differentiate yourself. But since there are so many competitors here, and also because the technology and the product is still fairly young, it's going to be difficult to distinguish yourself from others that are also there. And then finally, again, as the shakeout stage finishes up, there's a lot of competition and there's a lot of uh, pressure for margin because we want to be able to reduce our costs as much as possible, but at the same time, our prices are being pushed down too, which means our margins aren't really growing as well right there. So as we finish up then, moving into the maturity stage, we want to remember that we're transitioning and we're transitioning into a slower sales period. We can't fall under the illusion that growth is going to continue and continue forever. In fact, at this point in the product life cycle, we may still have growth in sales, but growth is increasing at a decreasing rate. So the shape of the product lifecycle curve is concave at this point. So we may still be growing, but our growth is slowing. Um, So this typically may not look like a very attractive product market to be in from a firm's perspective because growth is happening, but it's fairly clear that the growth is slowing down. So we want to be able to create a competitive advantage, but growth slows down, and because there's still products shaking out, we need to be able to find ways to differentiate ourselves, and that's going to be kind of a challenge or a trap, if you will, during this period of time. It would appear as though it would appear as though that the product market's not particularly attractive, but it will be for those who stick around and stay in there. So any early advantages then that firms have to insulate themselves or to be able to protect themselves from a price or service perspective need to be thought of as ones that could be duplicated or ones that could be matched. And one of the ideas is that firms and markets change, or industries change, and the dynamic and the structure of the industry is going to change yet again. And so we want to be able to match that change or understand that very soon there are going to be a lot fewer firms and that we're going to have to really demonstrate how we're different and we're selective in the marketplace. Finally, one of the traps then during this period is that we'd be willing to forego market share for some type of a short run profit. We want to be able to make investments at this point, investments in the marketplace, investments in our customers. So a big push for a successful firm that's going to stay in the product is that you want to invest in service. That's a big deal right now. You want to be able to invest in loyalty. You want to be able to invest in customer satisfaction. And those aren't going to necessarily, in the short run anyways, they're not going to produce profits like some of the other organizations or some of the other firms will see. So those are going to be costs that don't necessarily generate sales today, but they'll generate sales later. That's one of the trade-offs as well that we're thinking about at this point. So anyways, moving on to a mature market. We want to be able to develop our plan and develop our strategy, which it will include establishing a clear competitive advantage and differentiation in product from those firms that remain. We're going to have fewer firms in the marketplace right now, yet ironically, this is a period of time when our costs begin to fall dramatically, so that there's a lot of profit margin that's going to be gained here. But we do need to protect ourselves. We need to invest in customer satisfaction and customer loyalty. Those will be key points that we think of as we move forward. A product in this period we sometimes think of as a cash cow. There are different designations of products through the Boston Consulting Group matrix. Some of them are called question marks. Some of them are stars. Some of them are cash cows, and then others are dogs or problem products. And so a cash cow is a product that is well established, that produces a lot of consistent sales and a lot of sales revenue. And we can take that money and that cash flow that we're gaining from this type of product in a mature stage, and we can actually fund new product development from it. So that's one of the reasons why it's important to stay in a product through the growth stage or through the maturity stage if possible. So we want to pursue growth and profit opportunities. One of the things that we'll end up wanting to be able to do is something called product augmentation. And product augmentation often happens through the idea of greater and improved service. So we think about how we can improve the product, and we think about how we can improve how people use the product, and that will help differentiate ourselves from our competitors. So we'll gain competitive advantage by doing that. We'll also gain customer satisfaction and loyalty as well if we provide super good service and make modifications or changes to our core product that help the consumer use the product better. Okay, so then during the mature stage, we think about how we can continue to maintain product quality relative to our competition. So improvements that we can make to the performance and durability of the product lend themselves to something called relative advantage, and how well the product performs relative to our competition, how well the product performs and without incidents of failure or defects, so quality issues that performance that deal with product failure, specifically new features that we can develop that would add or enhance the core product itself. Reliability, which it ties into this quality issue that we had before. How well the product can be serviced, whether it fails a lot, can it be fixed? So service after the sale and service with the product itself. And then other issues that deal with the aesthetics of the product and truly an esoteric type thing, the brand itself. So the brand is not something that you can hold, but it's certainly something you buy. Absolutely something that you buy. So as we think about product augmentations, we think about the product's physical performance and how we can make modifications to improve that. And in these areas, these are the areas that set our product apart from our competitors. So we're looking at things that we can do to help differentiate our product. As we know, in the mature stage, differentiation is a big thing because we want to continue to show how our product is better and superior than everybody else's, and you should continue to buy our product. And in fact, you should buy our product over our competitors, and we'll try to get people to switch over to us. So these are different products then, product quality dimensions then that we can think about as we want to differentiate our product. And here's the thing: if you got a product that's been in the marketplace for a while, people may know your name, but they might think of the product as maybe stale or it has a shelf life and it's the old-fashioned one or whatever. We need to break through that. That's a big deal. We have to create a sense of newness to our product. So what we'll want to do is we want to launch a new and improved version of our product by modifying these dimensions. So new and improved products absolutely is something that we're doing here during the mature stage to give people a new reason to try our product again, maybe to turn in their old version, to replace their old version, and so on and so forth. So again, we talked sometimes about maybe multiple generations of products. Here's a case where we're making product changes or adaptations, and it may not be a completely new product, but it's certainly something that gives you reason to have a press release. It gives you reason to launch a media campaign. It gives you reason for customers to come back out and try your product again. In addition to product augmentations, we also have this notion of service. Service becomes a key differentiator between companies that are in mature areas in the product life cycle. So a lot of work has been done on this to think about how well a customer is treated and how that really sets apart many different firms. And in the mature stage, the idea is that there are lots of companies that can produce the product. So like producing the product does not necessarily set you apart in a mature market, but what does set you apart is how you sell it and the manner in which you work with the customer as they use your product. So that interaction there becomes much more important as we move out of the shakeout into maturity and then eventually into the decline stage of the product life cycle. So dimensions then of service quality, which have been studied in the past, deal with the appearance and physical aspects of the product itself. Those are kind of tangible type things. So the appearance and physical facilities, how things look. So if you walk into a restaurant and it's dirty, or maybe it's maybe the counter is cracked, or maybe the windows aren't particularly clean, or maybe they left a mop bucket out on the floor. Those are things that you see that suggest sloppiness, or suggest something's old, or not really where it needs to be. So those are tangible issues. Reliability deals with that you offer something and then you follow through with your offering. So we promise you something, we're going to follow through with that something. Responsiveness, if a customer asks for something, how promptly is their request met? Now, it doesn't mean you always have to answer positively to the customer, but it certainly means that you have to give an answer and you have to be able to provide prompt service. Assurance is this confidence issue that when you offer a product, the assurance that the product will work. So trust and confidence is something that is built as a element of assurance. And then empathy. So here's the thing. Customers want to know that their feelings are being heard and met and satisfied, and they don't want to feel like they're just a number. Being empathetic means that you're listening and that you're feeling and that you share something with the customer on an emotional level. So empathy then is the fifth dimension of service quality. And so again, if you're a mature product, if you're in a mature product class, if others can copy you, then what is it that sets you apart? A lot of times it's the service that we provide that sets us apart from other firms. In fact, if you provide great service, your product doesn't have to be great. Your product doesn't have to be the best from a technical perspective. If you provide great service, people will keep coming back to you over and over and over again. Service is a super important component of every product. However, it's difficult to do, and it's difficult to measure sometimes. And a lot of times, if you're a producer, then you just simply don't do service well. So anyways, that's a note on that. When we measure service, there's a whole bunch of mechanisms here. We can actually measure services, and it's so there's all kinds of gap-based analyses that are performed, and this chart is a little overwhelming when we look at it here, but basically what happens is you have some type of need and expectation of a service encounter. So you expect to walk into a place of business, or you expect to do business with a company, and you expect a certain level of service. That level of service expectation is a result of your past experience and so on. So we come in with this expected service level, and then when we receive service, then we ask, well, does the service we receive match what we expected? And every time there's a expectation and then like a service delivery, there's a little bit of a gap that's created. Like, I expected a certain level of service and they either exceeded it or they came under my expectations and I was left a little short. But that gap between what I expected and what I received is something we actually measure. And then as you go through this, there are all kinds of gaps associated here with what we delivered, what the customer expected. There's a gap that suggests, like, I think I'm delivering good service, but what the customer is actually receiving is something else. So management perceptions of what the customer wants and what they actually get, what I deliver, and then what I actually what is actually received, and so on, is measured as well. So this is a pretty confusing and in-depth kind of series of gaps. And the point that I only want to make right now is that service quality is measurable and it's perceptual based on expectations. And so these different gaps represent different differences in service expectation and service delivery among customers and among managers or firm employees. So service is important. Being able to differentiate the firm based on service quality is something that's important. So measuring customer satisfaction through services, what their perceptions are and what their expectations are, is where we want to move forward towards. We understand that we need to change. We need to adapt to what customer expectations would be. If a competitor comes into the marketplace with very, very high quality, they could completely shift and change customer expectations, which we're eventually going to have to match, perhaps. So being able to revise periodically and determine the actions we need to take in order to match changing customer satisfaction levels would be something during the mature stage that we're going to be doing. Okay, so moving forward then, we want to continue to encourage customers to buy from our products, buy our products again. We know that there's a loyalty issue that is derived and that's created. When we talk about loyalty, we're talking about customers that will buy larger volumes from us and require little or less effort from us in order to buy the product. So as we create loyal customers, we have customers who are willing to pay more for our products, so they'll actually pay a price premium. They'll encourage others to buy the products that we offer, so their friends and family and so forth. And they'll buy larger volumes, and all of this will be done at less expense for us because we won't have to sell them we won't have to put as much effort in to sell them because they're loyal customers. So during the maturity stage then, loyalty, customer satisfaction, service, those are all issues that we're dealing with that aren't necessarily product related. So we had the tangible elements and tangible elements of quality and so forth of the product itself, and the slight augmentations that we're going to try to improve upon. But really where we see a lot of growth in terms of profitability is where we service the product as we create happy customers that keep coming back for lots and lots of reasons. So to do so, we need to be able to understand how customers behave, what they like, what they don't like emotionally. We talked earlier about psychographic characteristics of the customer, and much of consumer behavior deals with how customers make decisions and how they feel and their emotional state and their attitudes and what triggers them psychologically to buy our product. So when we talk about customer behavior, we really want to make sure that we understand what the motivators are for customers in this particular period of time. From a service component, we want to make sure that we're promptly dealing with complaints and that we're managing the perception of our brand actively, and we're not letting it become stale and old-fashioned, but rather we are managing how people feel and think about our product. One of the things we want to do is we want to routinely capture people's feelings or sentiments towards what we're doing. So going out and measuring brand perception And we talk sometimes about brand personality and how people feel the brand relates to them. We ask and we try to measure whether the brand matches a consumer's personality or image, self-image, the image that they want to portray. These are all things that relate to the emotional aspect that the customer has as they interact with the brand itself. So being able to study the sentiments of the brand then is important. And interestingly enough, we want to know why people are leaving. If somebody leaves our brand, we want to know about it, or our product. We want to understand why they do it. And in that, we just learn ways we can keep them longer in our brand and so forth. Okay, so finally then, just as a real quick, just kind of wrap up, we talked about the shakeout and how the shakeout leads to maturity in the mature stage, and this idea that during the shakeout period we have typically excess capacity, so prices are then lowered because we have more supply than demand in the marketplace, which causes a lot of companies to leave the actual product market because they just can't afford it. It's a profitability type thing, which brings us into the maturity stage, at which time you want to maintain market share, but we also want to give consumers new reasons to buy the product, and we want to, more importantly, really take care of the customers that we have by building loyalty and increasing satisfaction. And so those would lead to success features in the mature markets, and really big focus on service quality. I can't emphasize enough how service quality is measured and focused on nowadays as a key differentiator between companies, and customers will gladly reward a company that serves them well.